It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Folks, when he was a surgeon in northeastern Pennsylvania, he had the reputation about being ahead of his time. He is ahead of his time. He's retired now, but you would never think it. He's an extremely good friend of mine. I'm very honored to have him on the show today to talk about some of the great things he's accomplished. My good friend, Dr. Victor F. Greco. Vic, it's nice to have you on the show.
It's always a pleasure, Sam. You know that.
You don't want to get old, do you? You want to just stay the same.
I want to stay the same.
You look fabulous. God
Thank
bless
you.
You look when we're thinking about doing the show, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there's so much that we could talk about Dr. Greco, and for the thousands of people who know you, okay, I just want to go back a little bit, okay, as to
Sure.
what happened in your life that you decided you wanted to go into medicine, then going into surgery?
Believe it or not, I made up my mind when I was 5 years of age I was going to be a surgeon. And you know, it's amazing how people can impress you. My mother's brother, my Uncle Frank, was a surgeon in Kansas City, Missouri. And he came to visit. And I'll never forget, Mom put us in our pajamas and put us to bed. And I guess my Uncle Frank decided to come and visit. It was about 8:30, so she came up and woke us up. And she says, "Come on down, I want you to meet your uncle," which I had never met him before. So we come down the steps and standing on a landing, you know how the homes were then, you had a landing here and you went down to the dining room here and the kitchen here. And I saw this handsome gentleman standing there, well-dressed in a three-piece suit. He had the watch inside his pocket with the chain, and right next to him was this beautiful lady, which is his wife. And I said, geez, if that's what a surgeon is, that's what I'm going to be. Honest to God. Yeah. It was something as simple as that. I admired him so much. And I watched him as he progressed. As I got older and watched him progress. Yeah. And when I was in the service, every weekend, I took my basic training in Joplin, Missouri. I used to hop on the train and go to Kansas City every weekend and work with him in the operating room.
Is that right?
Yes. And that's how life evolved, and I just determined I wanted to be a surgeon, and I stuck to it.
When you were doing that, okay, when you were in medical school, excuse me, and then you start, doing surgeries.
Yes.
How did you stay ahead? Because I'll talk about some of the things that you initiated in Hazleton, okay, that were unheard of. But now they're like, common sense.
Sure.
I mean, what did you study a lot? Did you,
Yes. I was very, very studious, even as a child. I read books all the time. And Mom used to tell us, you've got to fall asleep. And I'd actually have a flashlight, and under the covers, read the book, and she'd come in and catch us, take my flashlight away. But I used to study. My father started me very early in life. And I started school, I was only 5 years of age. By the time I started school, I could do long division and all the mathematics and things of that sort. And I'll never forget, I just loved studying, and I loved reading, and I did it all the time. And I also loved research. And so I was both into research and reading. I read all the journals and everything I put my hands on. And I saw what the latest advances were, what was happening in the laboratories, in research laboratories, what was happening in the big university hospitals. And this became a part of my life.
When, you came up from a family that was hardworking family,
Yes,
like we all did, okay? And so what did they instill in you?
They instilled us the value of hard work, to do the best you can. You must set a goal and no excuses. You have to reach that goal. And you've got to be as ethical and honest as possible, and don't hurt people. Do what's best for people. And this was basically it. And the big thing my father and mother always told us, never bring shame on the family name. I'm sure your family told you the same thing. It was very important. And we worked very hard. And I was fortunate that God gave me the intelligence. I started college, I was only 15 years of age when I started college. And I was accepted in medical school. I was only at that time 17 years of age. I was accepted in medical school. I'd been a doctor at age 21, except World War II, I went into the service. And then when I came back out, I continued my education.
And when did you meet your lovely wife, Jean?
I met my lovely wife when I was in medical school. I was junior interning at in the summer times at the Hazelland General, and she was dating a brother of a very good friend of mine, and I met her at the Hazelland State Hospital, and as it turned out, we got married, raised 6 wonderful children, and as I've often said, if I could draw a pattern or a plan of what I would expect of a mother and a wife, I could have never done better than what I did with Jean.
Yeah.
Excellent mother and wife.
And as evidence of success of your children. You know, when I'm interviewing people and we're talking about, you know, they look at people as who are successful, and you always get the thing is, boy, you're lucky. Isn't that Dr. Greco lucky? You know, isn't that Sam Lesante lucky he has, you know, etc. But you know, the old slogan is you're right, I'm lucky, but the harder I work, the luckier I become.
Luckier I become, that's
okay.
right.
And so when you came, you know, when you came into Hazleton and you start practicing, all right, you know, not only are you a great surgeon, okay, was a great surgeon, but you're also an excellent businessman, okay? And it's very rare that you see medical doctors or, you know, people in the medical, because they hire business agents, which I understand.
Yes.
But in your case, where did you get your business sense from?
I think I got my business sense from my father. My father, in order to get the money together to get us to school, he worked, you know, at Jet Highland, but he always had businesses on his side. He had the garbage contract in Hazelton. I picked garbage when I was 10, 11, 12 years of age in the summertime. He also had strippings. He bought a steam shovel and he had strippings. My brother used to drive the truck in the summertime down there, and he always had a business on the side to supplement his income because he wasn't making much at the breaker. And my mother, God bless her, was an excellent wife and mother, and she saved and saved everything. And with this background, we were able to get to school, and I think I got my business sense of my father watching him.
Well, he certainly did a great job at it.
Well, thank
Victor.
you.
Okay. Now, of course, you know, Michael, since God rest his soul, your brother Michael grew up the same way. I mean, with hard work and became. He was definitely ahead of his time as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God, this guy was just. If they recall what he wanted to do in downtown Hazleton, and you know how we all worked so hard. Okay.
That's right.
Could you imagine, Victor, if Mike Greco would have had what he wanted to establish downtown Hazleton, what we'd have today?
You would have had the most beautiful, progressive city in the state of Pennsylvania. He was way ahead of his time of things he wanted to do. The unfortunate part was there was politics, there was prejudice, there was jealousy, there were all the things that he had to fight. And the people in control just prevented him from doing what he wanted to do.
Look what happened. Look what happened.
Yes.
You know, we fell down. Okay, and you know, I was going to say something to you. Okay, as the two terrible things that I've seen and witnessed and still see is jealousy, envy. Okay,
Yes.
the most important things. And then, of course, on top of that becomes ego.
Yes.
Okay, so I've seen how people try to demeanor families because they're hardworking. I see how jealous they are. They say things that are not true, and no matter how they could hurt you, they could hurt you. How did you live through all of that? I know how I'm living through it. I'm ignoring it, but the point is, how did you live through that stuff?
Basically the same thing. You just, as long as you know what you're doing. And my philosophy in life is do whatever you want to do as long as you don't hurt somebody on purpose. You must not steal. You must not be guilty of taking shortcuts where you're causing somebody difficulty. Set a goal, work as hard as you can, and reach for it. Never, never worry about what people have to say about you. Close your ears, because you're going to be criticized no matter what you do, Sam.
But it does, and I agree with you, there's no question, but it does hurt a little bit.
Oh, of course it hurts.
Because especially if there's so-called a friend of yours,
Yes.
okay, that would do that and say things instead of coming up to you and addressing certain things. And those things, you know, you say, well, why? I mean, why would they do that, okay? You know, families, when they were poor,
Yes.
and your brothers and sisters and families, they were all getting, as soon as they start making money, and then all of a sudden, families start separating, okay?
Yes.
Because who was jealous of who got a new car, who got a new house, and it should be reversed. You know, like I'm so thrilled when I find out, and so is my wife Debbie, we're so happy when someone is so successful, if they're friends of ours, is even above, you know, I'm so proud of your children, okay, how successful they are.
Thank you.
I'm not jealous of the kid.
Thank
you know, and I don't understand that, Victor. You know?
It's human nature.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
Yeah, it really is.
I'll never forget one thing I learned in life, along with other things. By the time we die, if we can count on one hand 5 true friends, you've had a rich life.
Yeah. Well, there's Sam Lesante right
That's
there.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
Folks, I'm talking to my very good friend, Dr. Victor Greco. Now, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about what do we mean by I said ahead of his time, okay? You all heard of the heart-lung machine. Well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to talk about how he did his surgeries, some innovations he did, and also what lessons do we learn from seniors? I always said this, I mean this, Vic. If the country wanted to straighten out their problems, all they have to do is gather senior citizens up, okay, and talk to them, and believe me, we'll solve a lot of problems because of the knowledge that we have, okay? I know you're a lot older than me, like I'm 41, I think you're 61 or 62.
88.
God bless you. I'll be back right after this. Thanks for staying with us, folks. I'm Sam Lesante. Remember, you're watching the Sam Lesante Show. Anytime, anywhere in the world, you can watch all of our shows on ssptv.com. My email is sam@ssptv.com. My guest today, Dr. Victor F. Greco, retired surgeon. I want to read something from the alumni bulletin that was Jefferson Medical College. This is in the magazine. I want to read this paragraph for you, okay? It's called The Heart-Lung Machine. The year was 1953. Mathematical calculations were done with slide rules. Devices resembling CAT scans and magnetic resolution imaging were years away from being developed. Operating rooms were not equipped with devices today physicians take for granted. Okay, blood pressure displays, respirators, electrocardiograms. So what happened on May 6th, excuse me, folks, 1953, in a cramped operating room in Philadelphia? Would not only impact the lives of thousands of patients, but revolutionize contemporary cardiac surgery. As Victor F. Greco, MD, 51, a first-year surgical resident in 1953 and part of the team on May 6 notes, what happened opened the last frontiers of surgery. Now, this must have been, you were involved with the first heart-lung machine, correct?
That's right.
Sammy, as you're talking, let's talk about the doctor who was there, what your part was, etc. And I'd like to show some of the pictures up
Sure.
here.
The developer of the heart-lung machine was Dr. John H. Gibbon Jr., a wonderful individual, was professor of surgery at Jefferson Medical College Hospital and the college itself. And I was fortunate enough to get the residency with him. Because of the work he was doing with the heart-lung machine, I wanted to be in with that and try to do whatever he could. And he accepted me as a resident. And for the whole year I was there, we helped further the development of the heart-lung machine. And we worked on dogs, large dogs. And what we would do was put them on this machine after we put them to sleep, open up their heart, have the machine do the work of the heart and lung. We would then create a defect, cut a hole in the heart in the upper chambers between the 2 atria, the upper 2 chambers of the heart, close them up, bring them back off the machines, and then we would stay up with them day and night. We, the residents, would stay up with them day and night and watch them recover. After recovering from the surgery, we'd watch them then over a period of time going into congestive heart failure. And before they were dying, we brought them back into the research laboratory, put them back on the heart-lung machine again, opened the heart, closed the defect, closed the heart, emptied their blood back where it belonged to them, out of the machine into their body. Again, we watched them come back to health and watch them recover completely. After we had done that with about 45 to 48 dogs successfully without losing one of them, Dr. Gibbons says it's time that we take this machine into the operating room. We've proven that it works. And it so happened that in May, a young girl by the name of Cecilia Bavalek, who was from Sawyerville, so talk about the local connection.
Yeah.
She came in dying of congestive failure. She had very few days left to live. That's how bad she was. And she had this defect that we created in the laboratory. We explained to the family and to Cecilia the fact that this never been done before. However, we told her the work was done behind it. We felt confident we could help her. But we told her it's a tremendous risk. You're the first patient to have this done. We want you to understand what the risks were. And she and the family accepted it. Sam, we did this girl mostly under local anesthesia.
Oh my gosh.
Believe it or not, because she was too sick to be put down real deep.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we sprayed her throat with local solution, injected her nerves under the ribs to take away the pain so she wouldn't feel it, gave her just light sodium pentothal anesthesia, opened her chest, opened her heart, and for the first time in mankind, we saw the inside of a heart, devoid of blood. Saw the defect, and Dr. Gibbon, of course, was the surgeon, and he closed this defect. I was in charge of being sure the heart-lung machine ran successfully. The heart-lung machine was the size of a baby grand piano. It took 15 pints of blood to prime that machine.
In fact, we're showing it right now.
Right there.
Yeah.
Took 15 pints of blood to prime that machine.
Oh my gosh.
Medical students donated the blood for this case, by the way,
Wow.
so we could use it in the
Is that
machine
the
and
blood
body.
on the hanging up on the big-
That's the lung, the thing you see there, a big plastic thing.
Yeah.
The blood goes in on the top and it's blue because it's full of no oxygen.
Okay.
It's full of the poison or the toxins.
Yeah.
As it comes down that screen, it's exposed to an atmosphere of oxygen. By the time it hits the bottom, it's totally oxygenated as red.
Okay.
And then that's pumped back into the patient's body, back into their body to keep all organs alive and give them the nutrients they need.
Wow.
The procedure took about, the closing itself took about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
But
This is the actual procedure going on now.
there's the picture there. You can probably see me on with the cap and gown. I'm on the picture. We then closed her heart, took her off the machine. She survived. And it was the first successful open heart surgery in the world.
Wow.
And that's why a whole new barrier that stood in our way was broken, and we entered a new field of open heart surgery. Cecilia lived until the year 2000.
Wow.
So we gave her an additional 47 years of life.
My God. Wow.
So I'm very proud of that, obviously.
Wow.
And it was one of the greatest things that could have happened to me. And the amazing part of it was Dr. Gibbon was a real scientist. In those days, anytime anything was being done, the newspapers were called in to take pictures. He refused to report this to the newspaper. He said, we're an academic institution. We report it to the surgical journals first. We must let the surgical colleagues know what we did. And he said, no publicity. And that's the way it went.
You know, I can imagine, I could imagine how thrilling it must be for you as a surgeon.
Yes.
To see what was going on, like when we go to conventions and we see what's new in, TV land. And here's a guy, Dr. Gibbons, is his name Gibbons? Okay.
Gibbon, right.
Who was a scientist and was able to explore that. I don't want to become political, but the point is, what I think about is when I see a man like you and I see a man like him and I see all these successful people, what if their mother would have aborted them?
Right.
What if they would have been aborted?
Absolutely.
And here I know what people are thinking, but the point is, we are killing future scientists, future doctors, future great people, okay? Right. And it's so sad, Victor, isn't it?
No question about it. We become a society that is give me, give me, give me, and what's best for me is all I'm interested in. If somebody's going to be in my way, get rid of them.
It's so sad.
It's unfortunate, but
now,
it's true.
When you, of course, that was an innovation from you, and I guess the inspiration that you get from this, I know how excited I get. Okay.
Yes, it's amazing. And the one, if I may brag just a little bit now, the one big step that I was able to give besides the basic research, one of the major problems was air embolization.
What's that?
Well, what happens when you take the picture's not there now, but when you take the blood going back into the patient. And as the heart fills up with blood, there's also air in there. Yeah. And so one of the complications was we were trying to work out in the laboratory was the fact that sometimes, many times, the blood, as the heart would pump air through the body, and the animals may get a stroke, or may have brain damage or damage to other organs because of air. And we had to solve that problem. And so we had a session where we used to sit down and talk about things. And while we're talking about how can we get rid of this problem, what can we do? And it's a matter how the answer is always simple. And as I went through life, I always said, if I get a complicated answer, I know it's wrong. Because nature is simple. If you understand nature, it's very simple. And suddenly like that, the idea came to my head. And I raised my hand, and Dr. Gibbons said, what is it, Vic? I says, what happens to air? It rises, doesn't it? He says, yes. I said, well, let's think about it in the heart. Why don't we just take the heart, before we take them off the machine completely, turn the apex up. So all the air will be trapped in the apex of the heart. I said, then we take a small trocar, push it through the apex into the ventricle, and suck out the air. And we'll know when all the air is out when you get a steady stream of blood without bubbles in it. That was the answer.
Wow.
It was that simple.
Wow.
It was that simple.
That's interesting you should say that. So when you have a solution, if it's complicated, it's wrong. If it's as simple comes to you, it's amazing.
It's usually the truth.
Folks, I'm talking to Dr. Victor F. Greco now. For those of you who remember going and having surgeries with him, how about this? How about drinking wine? No shaving anymore? All these things? What are you, nuts? We come back, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Greco. Welcome back. My guest, Dr. Victor F. Greco. So, all right, so here you are operating, right? And then, you know, many times I'm talking to my wife, who's a registered nurse, you know, they had to shave you before operating. Okay, and you said we don't have to do it.
No shaving.
Why?
Well, think about it. You're being shaved, and this is not to demean anybody, by somebody who's really not a barber. And as they shave, even though they're trying to be careful, what do? They nick the skin, right? Mm-hmm. Or they take off the top layer of the skin as they're shaving you. What protects our body from the bacteria that's on the skin? Intact skin. So if you disturb that barrier of the skin, you're increasing your infections in a wound. It's as simple as that. And therefore I says, no, you don't shave them. If you have pubic hair, just cut it with a scissors, but don't get down and shave.
Amazing.
It was as simple as that.
That's what Debbie was telling me the other day. Now, what about this? Of course, people loved you for this. What about the wine? You know, give him wine in the hospital. You know, hey, we're going back up because he has to get drunk at the end of the day.
There are two good reasons why I gave wine. I did a lot of reading, as I told you.
Yeah.
And I read in an obscure article that red wine had a substance in it called reversatol. And reversatol was a strong antioxidant, but was also good for wound healing. And so I thought to myself, why don't we have our patients drink wine? It'll have their wounds heal faster for them. An antioxidant will help their health, but also I thought of another thing. You won't need as much sedation after surgery, and patients will sleep better. You don't need the sleeping pills. And I also was a little guilty of something personal. And that was when you went in and you asked the patients how are they doing, they really had a justifiable complaint, because if it wasn't something important, they didn't give you anything minor, because they were really feeling good.
I know what's happening now. Hey, Mary, you hear what the Vic Greco says? And you're complaining I'm drinking wine? You know,
it's good for your health.
Yeah,
it's good.
It all depends, I guess, in moderation.
But red wine.
Yeah.
One glass. One glass. Not a water glass, a wine glass of red wine.
And a little Dewar Scotch, too. Now, listen to me. We have a minute left, okay? And it's such a shame because I said we could probably talk for 3 hours. I'm really enjoying this. 88 years old, I don't believe it. Victor, what message could you tell people today, what message would you like to set forth so people could grasp something, from the experiences you had?
I think first you've got to be honest with yourself. You must push yourself to do everything possible that you can do and do well. You should take every opportunity there is to learn. You must never do anything to hurt anybody at any time. Never worry what people have to say about you as long as what you're doing is correct and you're not out purposely trying to hurt somebody. And the most important thing in life is family. There must always be love, warmth, compassion, learning with family. This, to me, is the most important part of society.
Well, like I said, Vic, if we had all the seniors together, the years of life, these seniors out there have so much to offer. You're 88. Promise me you'll come on the show when you hit 100.
I most certainly
because
will.
you'll be like George Burns, you'll be bouncing of it. And as usual, the best to all your children, your
Thank
wife,
you.
and your family. Folks, my guest is Dr. Victor F. Greco. You could always Google him. The heart-lung machine, interesting innovation, head of his time, just a great person. And Debbie and I and my family are so honored to have him and his wife and his family as personal friends, and it's our pleasure, okay?
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming on the show. We'll see you next time.